In this part of the video, we're actually continuing on our building our dresser, and now we're actually going to look at the feet. Remember, the third section down here is our footer called dresser feet. Now I've got the 4 div containers in here, foot 1, foot 2, foot 3, foot 4, because there are 4 feet for our dresser. Now, I'm going to show you some things I'm doing with CSS, which is kind of interesting. Remember, my dresser feet footer is 60 pixels tall. I've got each individual foot laid out because we're going to individually control where they go. I want to talk to you about this line right here, dresser feet greater than div. Now remember, up here we use dresser body article to look at our dresser body and target all of the articles in here. And you're saying, well, Stephen, why not do footer, or why not do dresser feet div, right? What is this greater than sign? The greater than sign, this greater than sign means target the first generation children only, okay? Because inside of here you can have divs built in with divs within div, but you don't want to target every single one. We just want to target the first level. So the greater than sign basically means target just the first generation children, okay? Because we're going to do something for every single one of them. Now, a quick rundown of something else here. Every container is either positioned relative or absolute. An element that is positioned absolute has a z-index, can be positioned up above, below different elements, but they do not affect its parent container. Okay, you have to have a parent container that is set to relative in order to keep your children positioned absolute within its boundary box. Elements that are positioned absolute are affected by the parent, but the parent is not affected by its children. What that means now is that a positioned absolute element pretty much has no depth or height width to its parent. So you can't just have a div container with a bunch of absolutely positioned boxes inside of it. That parent would basically have no height unless you physically set it. Since we set it height of 60 pixels, it's really not going to matter. So we're going to do position relative here, and then all of these are going to be positioned absolute. Now, some other things I'm going to add to these divs is I'm going to add a border. And a background color to them. I'm also going to set them a certain width and height. I do want them set 60 pixels because that's as high as my foot is, right? So the feet would obviously naturally be 60 pixels high. Now, for each of the feet, we're going to position them in a specific order where we want them to go. Let me show you what we look like so far. It's going to look like every single one of them is stacked on top of each other. They are. They're always going to be automatically positioned top left. Top left is 0, 0. And you go your X dimensions and your Y dimensions, so forth, so on, to their parent. Now, because the footer, dresser feet, is positioned relative, the children that are positioned absolute are going to be stuck inside of here. If I did not have position relative on the footer, this is what happens. Nothing, apparently. It's supposed to, if you have position absolute, they're supposed to jump up here to the top left part of the screen. So ignore that part, what I just said. But I'm going to use left, right, top, bottom to position where these different elements, these different feet are going to go. Now, of course, the foot on the left, the first one is going to be left 0. I'm going to do them just like this, basically. Foot 1, foot 2, foot 3, foot 4. Okay? So back to my drawing. So that means foot 4, I'm actually going to do right 0 pixels. it's going to position it all the way to the right, like so. Now the two inner ones, we want to shift in a little bit and up a little bit because they're not going to be the same level as the other ones. So I'm actually going to go on my left side, I'm going to go left 20 pixels, and I'm actually going to go top minus 20 pixels. On my right foot, I'm going to go right 20 pixels, top minus 20 pixels. Ta-da! Now, of course, you can see that these are pushing outside the foot box. Well, we don't want to see those on the dresser. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an overflow tag on our foot box. We'll go back up here to dresser feet. We're going to do this cool tag called overflow hidden. When you do that, that means anything that peeks outside the box goes bye-bye. You don't see it anymore. See? It's gone. It even actually cut off the bottom there because they're a little bit too much. One other thing I want to show you real quick is z-index. Now let's just say our feet on the sides are not quite as far out. Okay, I'm going to set them to this, and I'm actually going to do I'll explain what the important is later, but I'm doing this on purpose. Do you see how these things are running into each other? You see how this one is actually on top of that one and that one's behind it? They're in the right order that they're supposed to be in. 1 and then 2 would be on top of that, then 3 and then 4 comes in on top of it as well. But we want to make sure that these have depth and they're behind each other. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to take our first one, we're going to use a command called z-index. And because we want our first and fourth ones to be on top, we're going to set them at a level 2. And then these that we want in the back, we're actually going to set them at level 1. Now the default level usually is 1. And you can set this z-index however high you want, but don't go crazy and put like 20 million. Because somewhere along the line, someone's going to come and try and deal with your code. They're going to have to play a guessing game as to what you set your value to. But as I do this, you see how they're now behind each other? They're forced behind there like they're supposed to be. Okay? Now, this important command, last little point, background color important. I set the background color here. But if I don't put the important command here, order that they're listed in the CSS file does matter. Items down further in the list on the file get top precedence. However, I'm referring to them differently. Calling these by their ID and these by this. Now if I had somewhere up in the top of my style sheet foot 2 and I said background color CC, and then down here called it 6666, it would then I wouldn't need the important, it would override it. But being that I'm targeting them differently, I do run into that issue. So anyways, there you have it. It's not the greatest dresser in the world, but that's how you deal with CSS and HTML.